Hello, I'm Adrienne Stone, President of the IACL. Over the last few months, like everyone, everywhere, we at the IACL have been adjusting to the circumstances of the pandemic. For the IACL, that means that we need to respond to the challenges the pandemic poses for constitutions and constitutional law. And I'm very proud that the IACL blog has been at the forefront of this response, with a wide range of contributions on the many constitutional dimensions of this crisis. This video concludes a symposium on constitutional reflections on the pandemic, which I have been enjoying over the last few weeks. It is an excellent representation of the IACL's approach to constitutional law globally. The symposium investigates in depth the constitutional foundations of the response to the COVID crisis in many countries, drawing on our deep network of local experts. And I'm especially proud that the videos incorporate perspectives from jurisdictions that are not often included in global conversations about constitutional law. The videos present a rich and interesting picture. They show the intricacy of the legal response. Much depends on the precise ways in which constitutions allow for responses to emergencies, on the nature of the institutions they establish, and on the relationship between them. In short, there's quite a lot of law to master in understanding constitutional responses to COVID-19. But of course, constitutions as law sit in the context of politics and culture, and these videos provide an insight into those dynamics as well. They illustrate vividly how the response to COVID-19 depends on matters like trust or the lack of in institutions, the existence or the lack of conflict, and the relative preparedness of the citizenry to accept burdens on individual freedoms for collective goals. These videos, of course, are only the beginning of understanding this complex phenomenon, but they show how the IACL intends to engage for the future. It's my hope that the association will continue to be a forum for wide-ranging and creative thinking about constitutional law in the time of COVID-19. I'm very happy, therefore, to let you know of two more initiatives. The first, led by my colleague, Professor Jose Maria Serna, from the National Autonomous University of Mexico, is an ebook on the crisis that will appear later this year. Please look out for announcements on this blog. And the second is that the IACL is in the process of forming a research group on constitutional responses to COVID-19. Once again, there will be further announcements on this blog in due course, but I'm happy to tell you that the conveners of the group will be Professors Oran Doyle from Trinity College Dublin, Juliano Benvindo from the University of Brasília, and Dr. Chiara Graziani from the University of Genoa and Bocconi University in Italy. Even better than that, Oran, Chiara, and Juliano agreed to join me by Zoom for a short conversation about their plans for the group, and we'll go to that in a moment. I hope you enjoy their reflections, and please stay in touch with our plans. If you would like to join the group, I know Oran, Chiara, and Juliano would welcome hearing from you. I wanted to begin by asking the two of you about your interest in this research area. The pandemic is only 6 months old, yet you are already leading the way in a new area of research. Tell me how you became interested in it and how it relates to your previous work in constitutional law. Oran, do you want to start?
Sure, yes. I'm very pleased to have this opportunity to convene the research group with Chiara and Juliano. I think obviously we've all been living through the pandemic, so it was part of our personal lives, but for me it connected with my research, I think largely because of my interest in constitutional change and how constitutional systems change. And I think from my own country, Ireland, watching at how laws are being made, the input of experts into decision making, it's really putting a lot of stress on the constitutional system and is probably amounting to an informal change within the constitutional system. So I think that's how, for me, it fits into my previous research interests.
And Chiara?
Yes, I'm also very pleased to chair this research group on these issues because my interest for COVID-related measures arose because these are issues that are quite related to my previous research field in the area of constitutional law and comparative constitutional law, because my traditional research interests deals with the use of emergency power to manage another threat, which is the threat posed by international terrorism after the 9/11 attacks. And I also analyzed the relationship between technology and counterterrorism measures. And so I think that the analysis of emergency powers to address this different kind of threat, which is public health emergency, is very much related to my previous research field. And there can also be very significant interactions and similarities, let's say, between the use of emergency powers in these two contexts, although they are so different. And so these are the reason why I became interested in this kind of research on this kind of field.
I'm so glad that you'll both be joined by a scholar from the Global South as well, who bring such important perspectives to this research question. Juliano wasn't able to be with us today. So this crisis has so many dimensions, dimensions for, as you say, our personal lives. All of us are living a little bit differently at the moment, for health, for the economy, for democracy, for society. I'm just wondering, this absolute panoply of questions, how you propose focusing the group?
So I think we're initially focusing on two streams. So one of them is going to pick up on these issues of decision-making in constitutional law and public law decision-making, but to try to integrate a number of different elements of public law decision-making that we think have been, the connections between them have been foregrounded by this crisis. So the role of experts and public health experts in formulating policy and the relationship between them and democratically accountable officials. Then related to that, the balance between legislatures and executives, which is obviously a key feature of traditional emergency thinking around constitutional law, but even outside of the emergency frame, those relationships are evolving. The reliance on guidance as opposed to law in a lot of countries, or the interaction between sort of soft law and hard law. And finally, sort of the subnational constitutionalism elements, how federal entities are resolved, how devolved entities are resolved. And in some cases, perhaps the pandemic is causing centrifugal forces, but in others, centripetal forces. So looking at how different countries are managing the strain between the central response and the response of the regions is a key focus. So that really fits in, I think, to the decision-making side. But then the other stream, and perhaps Chiara will be able to talk more about this, sort of picks up issues of human rights, in particular digital privacy.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chiara.
Yeah, because the second stream of our research group, as you said, it deals with the use of technology in fighting public health emergency, as COVID-19 is. For example, let's think of the use of tracking apps or even the use of drones to check compliance with restrictions. And here there are privacy and data protection concerns, but also other questions. For example, the use of automatic decision-making or semi-automatic decision-making in this field, which is very sensitive, and also other problems which can be related to the effectiveness of these tools in the field of public health, and also more generally, which are the risks and the benefits of introducing, let's say, high-level technology in this very, very sensitive field. Yeah, so this is the second stream on which we would like to focus. But then, as you said, there are so many areas of public law that are engaged in the struggle against COVID-19.
That's interesting to hear about those two streams. And I suppose you may find that the focus of the group may change over time as something comes to the fore or falls back into the background. It's obviously an enormously dynamic and interesting area. I'm delighted to say that thanks to the wonders of Zoom, we have now been joined by Juliano Benvindo, who is in Brazil. One of the hotspots, I would have to say, for the coronavirus. We're exceptionally pleased that you were able to come on as a co-convener of the group with Oran and Chiara, because we're very keen to have included within the research group some perspectives from the Global South. I just wonder if, before we continue, you could say something about what you think bringing Global South perspectives will bring to this research group.
Thank you again, Adrienne, for having me here. Well, it's quite complicated, especially when we see what is going on here in Brazil right now. I think Brazil is possibly the worst case scenario. But at the same time, I cannot say that this homogeneous all over the region. So, for example, if you look at Argentina, just our neighbor here, you see that they are maybe dealing with this crisis in a much better way. And here in Brazil, we are just, just like a nightmare. I think our government had done maybe the worst choice, and maybe, I don't know. I think we are kind of living in two different realities here in Brazil, especially. We have like an authoritarian president who's Bolsonaro. Everyone knows how bad he is. And at the same time, we have this COVID-19 crisis. So everything just came together, and I don't know. I think it's quite complex. One thing that strike me as something bad, especially for Brazil, is that Brazil has a quite interesting health system. So we have like a universal public system. So we have like hospitals for everyone and so on. And Brazil could be a good example of a country that is not that rich and could handle the crisis in a better way. But the thing is, we just made everything wrong, and even this health structure we have is not working that well, because we don't have like a central government. We have the governors who are trying to do their best, and some better than others. But the reality is that we are really without any central government right now, and Brazil is really in a real bad scenario. So, the curve is just going up, and people are dying, and yeah, this is bad. But one thing that is very important, of course, I'm mentioning much more Brazil because it's my own country, but if you look at other countries, I don't see that as bad as here. We have, of course, some cases like Ecuador and even Mexico, but Brazil is certainly the worst case, and it should not be. This is the thing. We have like a quite interesting, we have this universal health system. So and it's very decentralized. So the governors, the mayors, they have all the power to, handle the crisis, but they need a central structure, like giving helping them out with all this, equipment and buying them ventilators and whatever. And they are not doing this. We had free as health ministers during this crisis. You can imagine how crazy that is. Or you had the first one, which was a doctor, not that good, but anyway, a doctor, he believed in science. He was fired just after a while. And then came another doctor, and he was fired. Actually not fired, he just, he could not handle the situation. And right after, now we have like a general, which is totally nuts. And he's just obeying the orders and doing whatever Bolsonaro wants. And this is a nightmare. And Bolsonaro is trying to, the crisis, thinking of the political situation right now, we have something that is quite weird, because the prospect of Brazil, I think if you had like, normal times, if you were living like, how you were in the past, I think he was really going to a second term, which would be really bad. And the thing is, the crisis kind of accelerate his radicalism in a moment. I think he had not yet occupied all the institutional places. So he's being challenged somehow by the Supreme Court, somehow also by the Congress and civil society. So it's quite interesting. I don't know. I think the case of Brazil is quite representative, because of course it's the biggest democracy in Latin America. Anyway, it's a democracy that is just living a nightmare right now. Let's see what's going to happen. But we cannot say about the same about the other countries. So you have some countries which are, we cannot, of course, Venezuela, it's just they are hiding all the numbers. But you have good examples. I think Argentina is a very good example, just to mention, because the government in Argentina, just compared to Brazil, it's a country where we are good neighbors, or used to be good neighbors, and we have similar living standards. And Argentina is just doing a much better strategy. It actually adopted a much better strategy than us. And so Brazil is like a bad example, but I cannot say that this is the case of the whole region. Yeah.
It does feel like we're all facing the same virus, but in some ways we're all many of us seem to live on different planets, even if we're quite close to each other.
Yeah.
One of the puzzles I would think for this research group is why the differences between countries have arisen in the way they have, why they're so distinct, even sometimes where countries appear to be in similar situations, they've in fact dealt with them differently. So I'm so looking forward to seeing how the work of the group begins to illuminate that question. I did have a final set of questions for you, and that was really around your plans for the group, because the purpose of this video is to encourage scholars who interact with the IACL to think about joining the group. And so I know that they would love to hear about the plans you have, and I'm sure they're just in the process of formation, and I'm sure that they probably include both real events and virtual events, but what can you tell us about your thinking so far? Shall we start back with Oran?
Sure, yeah. So I think, hopefully people will see this video and want to join us in the group. And I think important to say that the interests of the group will evolve over time and be very much responsive to the members of the group. But within the two sorts of streams that we're thinking of at the moment, broadly on the tech and rights stream and also the decision-making stream, I think we'd be thinking of online events, webinars where we could start to explore the issues in relation to those. And then hopefully relatively soon, perhaps a blog symposium that would bring together both of those perspectives. And then beyond that, let's just sort of get the ball rolling and see where it goes and see what the members want to do. But Chiara and Juliano, I'm sure, have can add to that and embellish it.
Are there things you'd like to add?
Well, yes, I think that, as you said, for now, most of the event will be virtual. For example, webinars, which was our initial ideas, and we're working on this. So let's stay tuned, because we will share news on these developments.
And if someone wants to join the group, what should they do?
They should email either of us, so we're fully visible on the web, I think, so I won't give the details now, but if you do a Google search, and we'll also have a web page set up once the group is fully up and running, will be set up on the IACL web page too.
Terrific. And can I say, please, everybody, if you're watching this video and you're interested in joining the group, watch out for a later announcement on this blog, which will give you all the details. So, well, thank you, everybody, for joining me from all points of the globe, as is appropriate for this very diverse group. It's wonderful to hear of your plans, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about them and watching the group develop.